So, David, we just got out of the Mike Duffy courtroom for the last time. Of course, he's been acquitted on all charges. What are your thoughts?
I was surprised, as I think a lot of people were, by how resounding the acquittal was. He was acquitted on all 31 counts on some of the bribery charges involving the Nigel Wright money. The judge said had he not acquitted him on the facts, he would have entered a stay, because if he had broken the law, it would have been under extreme pressure from Nigel Wright and his crew, as Judge Vaillancourt put it. And I think the striking thing is just how sharp the judge's denunciation of the Prime Minister's office was.
Well, it was both the Prime Minister's office and the Crown's case. For the first half of the day, it really seemed as though the judge was spending a lot of his time outlining where he thought the Crown had failed to make their case in somewhat excruciating detail. I imagine if you were either Mark Holmes or Jason Neubauer. But yeah, when it came to the afternoon, the sort of, it's fair to say that when he was looking at two versions of what happened, the one put forward by Mike Duffy and Don Bain, and the one put forward by the Prime Minister's office and Nigel Wright and all those people who testified, he sided with the Duffy version on every single thing that came along, which I gotta say, if the same Prime Minister were still in office, this would be a pretty big deal for them.
I think it would be absolutely
it'd be
stunning.
devastating.
It's a complete excoriation of the way the Prime Minister's office and the people around Stephen Harper conducted themselves. A judge talked about moving senators around like pieces on a chessboard, and how stunned he was to find that this is how the Prime Minister's office actually operated, and how the government and the legislative branch functions compared to what goes on in the PMO. I'm curious what struck you particularly about some of the findings of fact.
Well, I have to admit that I think, like a lot of people, I was expecting that some of those contracts that were let through Jerry Donahue's company, those were the Maple Ridge and the Ottawa ICF contracts. I think a lot of us thought that the sort of the evidence that was coming forward about those was such that if he were going to be found guilty on anything, those were likely to be the ones. But the judge, even though he would say things like, well, maybe that wasn't the best administrative practice, or, you know, perhaps this could give the impression there was something wrong, it just seemed at any point where there was the slightest opening to sort of give Duffy the benefit of the doubt and basically question whether the Crown had the evidence, he sided with Duffy all through. This is, if I were Donald Bain, I would take this entire ruling and frame it as sort of my ultimate work of convincing a judge of literally every single thing I said was correct.
And in fact, it might actually be Donald Bain's very last case.
Who knows? Yeah.
He's an experienced lawyer, 44 years in, took this one case on, and very possibly now he rides off into the sunset with, quite frankly, a huge victory. And Mike Duffy rides back up to the Senate.
He can go right up to the Senate, not next week because they're not sitting, but the week after, the triumphant return may happen. So that'll be something to watch.